Hello, everyone. It's Father Norm Douglas. You may be able to tell I'm kind of hoarse today. Some would say that's because I talk too much. But guess what? I talk anyway. And look forward to connecting with you. I'm actually videoing this conversation on election night. And as you know, lots goes on election night. I'm not staying up late. You may see this a couple days from now and may know some of the results of the election, although what I keep hearing, it may be several days before we know more. Elections are certainly a time in which we may end up dealing with the whole issue of how do we relate well in conflictual situations. But before I get to that, I want to share a story. About 3 months ago, I was visiting a family from another parish that I had been at in the past. And the family was the mom, the dad, and the adult son. And had a great conversation, great meal. I always enjoy a meal. Anytime any of you want to invite me, I'm willing to come, And so here it was. It went well. I've known this family for over 20 years, since the adult son was just a little kid. And we had a good time reminiscing, talking about a number of things, laughing about situations, and it was good. Then it reached a point where the mom, very active in a parish, had to go off to her parish activity. And I was going to leave too, but the dad and the son said, "Oh, no, stay. We haven't talked to each other for a while." And so I did. So again, for a while, we had pleasant conversation. And then this is what happened. That the dad, I'm sure lovingly, intentionally, he said to his son, he said, "Hey, election's coming up. How are you going to vote?" And then he adds the statement, "I hope you've wised up." Well, as soon as I heard that, I knew the dad, it was great that they wanted to have a conversation about that. But I also knew from my whole sense of communication, when he added, "I hope you've wised up," that might make the son a little more defensive. Well, I was right there. The son kind of came right out barnstorming and, "Hey, Dad, we always get in this argument, but we need to talk about this, and I know we differ, and that's the way it is." And then the dad basically was saying, "Well, hey, you're my son. I raised you with certain values as in a Christian home, and I want to see how you're doing. I want to know more about your thinking about this." And so the son, somewhat defensive, kind of went off to the races and just started arguing and talking about 5 or 6 different political issues at the same time and going on in kind of a self-righteous tone of voice. Tone of voice matters, And so I thought, I wonder where this is going to go. And of course, then as the son went on with that, the father came back in, and basically his response was, "I'm so disappointed in you. We didn't raise you to think like that." And so I was just kind of there sitting and back and forth. And so I brought up when there was a breath taken between the two of them. And I said, "Well, hey, wait a second. I'm willing to kind of enter into this, not with another point of view, but maybe if each of you, I can tell each of you want to better understand where the other person is coming from. Dad, I hear some hurt in you. You're that thought that, hey, you raised him different, Well, yeah." I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, didn't really get a chance." I asked the son, I said, tell you, Dad, why is it, or how have you reached this point where you made this decision in your political decisions? Talk about it. And even if you have a point of, even did any of this come from some positive things, the way your dad and mom raised you? So the son did share. He shared with great feeling. He shared that he was very happy to hear, that he grew up in the family he did, that he had the values. But with those values and with other life experiences, he was seeing in another point of view, but still from his Christian values. The father kind of listened. He struggled with that a little bit. But I remember saying to him as I entered in the conversation, "Well, do you think your son, can there be some truth in what he's saying? That sometimes people can have core values and still see things differently." Well, the dad was okay with that. He still wished his son thought like him. And we talked back and forth. And then the other thing that I asked each of them, I asked, "What are you feeling right now?" because often underlying conflict doesn't get spoken, those underlying feelings. And the underlying feeling for the son about not just his situation with his dad, but about the election was some fear and some anger. And that was motivating him a lot. And I asked the dad, and while partly because of that conversation, he felt some disappointment, but also he was feeling some fear and anger around what's going on in the country. We ended up talking a little bit more about that there was a common ground and that emotions matter, to get in touch with those emotions, to communicate them with one another, and to better understand where each other is coming from, even if it's from a different place that certainly can see, hey, it can be a good place from another perspective. What I want to do now is just take a few moments, and I had been part of an organization called Heart to Heart Communications for a number of years. We talked a lot about communication and how we have heart to heart with one another. I'm going to read part of this, just a few key points that I was staying mindful with them, and that we all need to stay mindful. I know you're hearing a lot, so this will also be on our website if you'd like these points. Here, we basically say, if you're going to commit to really relating heart to heart, better understanding one another and the emotions behind what we say, here are a few points. 1, being considerate of the other person's thoughts and feelings. 2, being open and honest about my thoughts and feelings, expressing what needs to be said. Now, sometimes we hold back and then it doesn't get resolved. 3, listening to seek to understand the other. 4, listening in a non-defensive manner. 5, inquiring when we are not sure or clear about where somebody else is coming from, about their intentions, to be able to say, gee, help me understand where that's coming from. 6, looking first within myself when talk turns bad, to see what positive steps I can take to make it better. We don't often think about that. It's not only the issue, it's looking at what positive steps in terms of how we talk about the issue. The next 2, when discussing an important topic, making my point without slipping into trying to win the battle. I saw that with them. I see that with me sometimes. That old ego gets up in a negative way. Then finally, allowing my higher values to be a positive influence in the ways I carry on conversation. So, high values with the attitudes and decisions I make, high values in how I relate with the people, especially the people around me. I know we could say more about that. Again, I will talk further about some of that, but in this time, however the politics goes, especially when you come up to Thanksgiving, maybe don't let that get in the way of a loving, joyful, seeking to understand and care about one another Thanksgiving Day. God bless.